Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for November 26th, 2024. Well, I hope everyone had a great day yesterday, and I apologize there was no morning prep. If you remember, I had mentioned I had a doctor's appointment that I had to be at first thing in the morning, so I didn't have time to do the morning prep yesterday because it did involve a bit of a drive. So if we were to settle in here and let's take a look at what happened overnight. First off, we have Asian markets were mostly lower last night. The president-elect came out yesterday and let everyone know that tariffs are on the way day one of his administration, and that's created a little bit of turbulence in the overnight session. Asian markets mostly lower. Australia was down 0.69%. The Nikkei was down 0.87%. India was down. South Korea was down. Hong Kong is just slightly higher. They had some manufacturing numbers that showed an increase of like 1.2%. And so Hong Kong managed to squeak out an $8.21 increase on the day. And Shanghai was lower by 0.12%. If we take a look at European markets this morning, they are also reacting negatively to those potential tariffs. We've got the DAX down 0.47%. The FTSE is down 0.26%, and the CAC is down 0.51% here this morning. Looking a little bit bearish, but nothing major at the moment. Then if we take a look at U.S. futures are bullish across the board again this morning, pumping up. We've got Dow futures just marginally up 11 points at 0.02%. S&P 500 futures are up $2.50 or 0.04%, and the NASDAQ futures the same, 0.04%, up $6.25 a share. $6.25 period. If we take a look at oil this morning, we've got oil moving lower. Incorrect. We have oil moving higher after a really rough day yesterday. Oil is bouncing up just a little bit. We have oil right now up 72.5 cents at 69.67 a barrel. Brent crude being up about 74 cents at 73.75 a barrel, and natural gas being up just slightly at a little over 5 cents, almost 6 cents. If we take a look at UNG, just moving a little bit higher here this morning. This has been on a tear recently to the upside and looking pretty good. Our XLE had a pretty rough day yesterday, just with that pullback in the market. Of course, we heard about the potential of a truce between Israel and Hezbollah. That is easing some of the pressure on oil here. So keep an eye on that. Now, of course, if we look at precious metals, that also had a pretty substantial impact on precious metals. Gold dropped hard yesterday, over $80 an ounce in one fell swoop. It's trying to hold on to a little bit of support here this morning. Right now, we've got gold futures up $15.20 an ounce. Silver is up as well this morning, trying to bounce back after dropping pretty hard yesterday. Copper is slightly lower this morning, platinum is lower, and palladium, after a pretty substantial decline yesterday, trying to gap higher and move up this morning on palladium. So keep an eye on those precious metals. One of the things we'll have to also be keeping an eye on is these treasury bonds. They've been moving to the downside here, finally, with that little bit of maybe decrease in geopolitical tensions. The 2-year at 4.26%, the 10-year at 4.29%, and the 30-year at 4.48%. So substantial decline on the 30s. If we take a look at what the effect that's having on the U.S. dollar did weaken yesterday, gapping lower, leaving behind. This is a pattern. This is a very bearish pattern called an abandoned baby. An abandoned baby pattern is where you have a gap up to that pattern and a gap down away from that pattern. You might also hear this called more of an evening star pattern, but the abandoned baby is even more bearish than an evening star. And if this were to follow through to the downside, watch carefully here, a real weakening of the dollar could occur, which would be probably a very good thing for the overall market. So watch that carefully. That would also potentially help those bonds start to turn up. We had a big gap up on bonds yesterday. Any kind of reversal in here could be a good thing for the market if we continue to see those bond rates pull back. So watch carefully there. Let's take a look at our crypto markets here this morning. Bitcoin pulling back here again today. Had a pretty rough pullback yesterday, trying to make it up there toward 100,000. But as you can see, pulling back. Right now, we've got Bitcoin down $3,441 a coin. Ether is, and that's 3.54%. Ether is down 5.43%, $189 a coin here today, as maybe some of the froth is coming off of the crypto market. That election froth really coming off. Pretty much right across the board in those cryptos this morning. So what does all that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Tuesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thanks so much for being here today. I very much appreciate it. How about we take a look at these charts and see if we can gain a little bit of information about how we may want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to do that look without a bias, and we also want to remember that anything is possible. So look at all potential possibilities for the day so that you're better prepared to take advantage of whatever price move does occur. So as you can see, yesterday we had a little bit of a kind of a shooting star type pattern, a little spinning top doji up there after gapping through to the upside. But if we look at this morning, right now we've got futures pushing higher once again. The pre-market pump is still on this morning. We were only up just a few points, 17 points. Right now we're up 68 points in just a couple of minutes, trying to pump even on higher here this morning. So keep an eye on this. So even with that gap up and that little shooting star, remember if this is going to be a bearish candle, this needs to push down. If we push on through, well, that candle doesn't mean anything to the upside, and we can continue to see that stretch in here. Now, if we notice we're up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this would be 6 days in a row, and a big stretch here to the upside, and we're starting to decline in volume. So watch that carefully. If the bears were to find any inspiration here today, then a pushback down, maybe to fill that gap to test this area of support, would not be out of the question. Breaking below there is where we'd probably start raising a little bit of concern, and what I mean by that is profit takers would likely come in and we get more of a push to the downside. And just keeping in mind, we could start progressing back down through some of these areas of price support if that were to occur. Of course, if those bulls continue to push, blue sky above, there's nothing up there restricting them to the upside. If we take a look at our SPY, SPY. Little bit of a pullback here this morning. We've had kind of a dark cloud cover type candle yesterday, and you can see we ran up there and tagged that resistance in the chart, backed away from it after that gap up. They may still try and press and get that new high breakout here today, and if they do, blue sky above that. If the bears, however, find any inspiration here today, you can see we've got a little price support right in here. Breaking down below there would probably trigger a little bit of profit taking. We might even push back far enough to fill that gap over here. So watch carefully on that on the SPY. Remember, volumes are going to be dropping pretty quickly here. If not today, certainly tomorrow. And we could see, a lot of activity in the morning and then just really see it kind of die on the vine like we did yesterday. If I look at a 15-minute chart after the gap up move, well, we kind of just drifted back down and then ended up going nowhere here in the market. So just kind of keep in mind that kind of price action could easily be the case here for the day as well. If the bulls find inspiration here today, we need to break back through that little island up here. We need to pop back up there. Yesterday we gapped up into it, rejected it. So if the bulls can find inspiration here, we need to push back through that resistance and then start pressing up toward those all-time highs in the market. However, if the bears find inspiration here on the day, there would be absolutely no reason to believe it couldn't be possible that we would push back in here and test this price support once again. And if we were to break down below there, look for a little bit of profit taking to come in. And the concern here would be that potential lower high in the QQQ. So keep an eye on that. And then, of course, IWM had a great day yesterday, pushing up, and you can see just peaked out from that all-time high, peaked out of there and then reversed, leaving a pretty substantial shooting star type pattern here on the day. And you'll notice that in that pullback, we broke back down below that resistance or that support there in the chart. So if the bulls find inspiration today, we need to break back above that and then follow this on through with a breakout and maybe even try and close up above that area in IWM. If the bears find inspiration, not too tough to see that possibility that if they were to push back, maybe a pushback down into here and maybe filling that little gap in the chart a little bit lower, and we might come into some additional support before traveling on through to test some of these areas in the chart. And of course, if we start spilling over there, just watch for some profit taking to potentially pick up. If we take a look at our VIX yesterday popped up originally in the day and then ended up sliding back down toward the end of the day. So right now the VIX, there's no fear in the market. We're coming back into that 14 handle. We're still a little elevated from what we have seen, but we're pulling back, showing no particular fear in the market. If the bulls can continue to find that inspiration, look for a break of that little price support area in the chart, maybe we can come down in here and test this level. If the if the bears find inspiration, maybe a push back up, we might find some resistance right in here and then push up back up into this area of resistance in the chart. And then, of course, remember, this can be really choppy because of the lack of volume that we're likely to see over the next few days. If we take a look at our T20s, our T2122 gives us that best chance that a pullback is on the way, and they're continuing to pump the futures higher. We just hit 90 points up in the Dow futures here since I started talking. Remarkable. But watch this here. We are stretched big time, and as we gap up here this morning, it's only going to enhance that stretch here to the upside. Trust me on this, we cannot go above 100. We will not go above 100 in this indicator. And although we can find periods where we can linger up here, we can linger in this area. There's never been a time when we've pushed up here, even after a long period of lingering up here, that we don't find that potential sell-off and profit taking in the market. And that's all it may be. It may not be any kind of major problem. It's just a profit taking, reducing risk sell-off that occurs that eases that buy pressure. We're a little bit on the frothy side here. If we notice in here, we've got plenty of downside opportunity for the bears, and we have very little upside opportunity for the bulls. If we take a look at our T2108, our T2108 percentage of stocks above the 40-day had a great day yesterday. Bulls are definitely in control here, pushing back up. We broke this little downtrend, created an uptrend in this chart, so keep an eye on this. If we can continue to push, maybe we can start testing some of these resistance areas up in here. If the bears get a hold of this for any reason today, then a pushback into some of these support areas is something that we'd want to start watching for. I'm going to say basically the same for T2107 as we continue this wild celebration here in the market. We're pushing up in here into a very frothy zone of T2107. Just kind of keeping in mind, once we reach up here to the mid 65 area, we are extremely overbought in the short term, and that can bring in some selling. It has in the past. Every reason to believe it could do it again. So watch that carefully as we stretch up here. This is a good move. We broke through a little bit of resistance yesterday. We've got some additional small resistance areas in here to be paying attention to, but then stretching right up into that 65 area creates that overbought situation in the market. Bulls are definitely in control here as well. And then if we take a look at T2101, T2101 had a nice breadth improvement yesterday, which was, my guess was a big tech corporate buyback coming into play. We got a couple of good surges in tech yesterday. I think we probably saw that breadth increase on that tech buyback activity. So watch that carefully. Now, I don't know that for sure. That's just my guess, but watch that closely. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar, well, we don't have a whole lot on here, but we're starting to pick up with a little bit more data. First off, we're going to come in with Case-Shiller here this morning. They're looking for Case-Shiller numbers, home price index, to decrease just slightly. You can see 20-city adjusted month over month to 0.3 is what they're suggesting, and the year over the year coming back to 4.8. Seeing housing prices come down would be a good thing for the market. FHFA, as you can see, they're looking at that coming in at 0.2 from a 0.3, so keep an eye on those. Remember, if these numbers were to come in hot, I would think the market would probably be a little bit negative on that, because that possibility of a rate cut would start slipping away here. If we take a look at consumer confidence, they're looking at that to come in very strong at 112.3 up from 108.7, so that would be bullish for the market. And of course, new home sales, they're looking at those new home sales likely declining here, which probably wouldn't be that big of a surprise, just simply because our bond yields have been pushing those rates up here for some time, and you likely see that possibility that the buyers are pulling back just a little bit to wait. If we take a look, we've got a Richmond Fed manufacturing number. Not that it'll matter much, but as you can see, -8 is what they're suggesting. That would be an improvement over that -1.4. I got to tell you, if it comes anything in like we saw yesterday in the Dallas manufacturing numbers, we might end up continuing to see that our manufacturing is still quite negative here in the country. Doesn't seem to matter. We can still hit new record highs and keep pushing strong, even with our manufacturing not doing very well overall. If we take a look at our bond auctions, we've got a couple of short-term bond auctions in here, 52-week, a 2-year, and a 5-year bond auction. And then FOMC minutes coming at 2 p.m. So look for a little bit of volatility around that at 2 p.m. Eastern today. As we look into Wednesday, now just keeping in mind, guys, I will do a morning prep tomorrow morning, but then I'm gone the rest of the day. And if you take a look, we've got a durable goods order, we've got GDP numbers, we've got international trading goods, we've got jobless claims, we've got corporate profits, retail numbers, wholesale numbers, Chicago PMI, personal incomes and outlays, pending home sales, petroleum status, along with some bond auctions, natural gas report. So guys, be prepared for some significant volatility as those numbers come out in the morning, and then expect the volume to just die. Everyone is going to be it's going to be the getaway day. Everyone's going to be clearing the floors, so kind of keep an eye on that. Remember, Thursday the market is closed. Friday we have very little going on in here on Friday, and just kind of keep in mind we have an early close on Friday as well. So remember, you could end up just trading with a computer if you're in here trying to trade. Could be some very suspect price action. Let's take a look at first off, let's take a look at our earnings calendar here for today. We do have a good round of earnings here this morning that might inspire some activity here today. ANF reporting this morning. Looks like Abercrombie's moving just a little bit lower. We have AMWD reporting, ADI, BNS, BBY, BURL, DKS, a lot of retail in here, EMBC, SJM, KSS, Macy's, TITN. Those are the notables for this morning. This afternoon, we're going to hear from AMBA, ARWR, ADSK. We've got Dell, CRWD. Pete's sake. There we go. CRWD, GES, HPQ. I'll get it. HPQ, MITK, JWN, NTNX, URBN, and WDAY. WDAY been a very, very strong stock here just recently, and this could be a very important report for that. So those are your notables for today. They drop off significantly tomorrow, as you might expect. So keep an eye on those. A lot of activity here this morning. Looks like the retail stuff is mostly going a bit south, suggesting those consumers might be just a little bit weaker than we would like them to be. Let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me this quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube. Also click that bell icon when it pops up. That helps the channel to continue to grow. And if you find these videos to be useful or worthy, just click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to grow. And remember, even an emoji counts in supporting the effort here for putting these videos out. Thank you so much for everyone who does take the time to do that. Let's take a quick look at some stocks, and remember that these aren't recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence. Be very, very careful in this market, and remember to follow your rules and your guidelines. Never ever blindly follow anyone else's trade ideas. Well, first off, this morning I want to bring up CAR. You guys know that I've been talking about CAR here as a potential trade. Well, that son of a gun just took off good and strong yesterday, popping up right in there where we would kind of be expecting that to get up in there. So if you got in on that trade, congratulations. Looks like we're getting a little bit of a pop and drop here this morning on CAR, but still in a very, very bullish pattern in that chart. Valero continues to set up, although we've got this little bit of bearishness coming in here on oil yesterday. This little resting consolidation in here I think is still setting up. As long as we can hold that support in here, I would watch for that next opportunity. If this holds, continues to rest out here, look for that opportunity for that to push on through. If it breaks down below that support, of course, all bets are off, and I would take that off of a short-term list for the moment. I think we should continue to keep an eye on some of these oil sector stocks despite the big strong pullback yesterday here in FANG. Notice we are popping right back up here this morning. So if we can continue to hold in this range, there still may be that opportunity, but if it does follow through to the downside, well, that's no good, and we might have to start looking at them as a potential short. Right here, ExxonMobil held up pretty well yesterday, hanging into this resting pattern over here to trend. Keep an eye on that. There may still be an opportunity there. I'm going to say for ConocoPhillips, not so much. ConocoPhillips just got hammered yesterday, dropping down. So I think now any rally back into here, I would be watching for a potential short. If we look at some of the techs, AMD tried to pop just a little bit here yesterday, but I still think AMD has that potential. With any kind of weakness or profit taking in the market, AMD could easily continue that fade to the downside. Now, the way this gets back in my good graces is it does break through up here and then it holds a higher low. Then we begin an upside trend, and I would be watching that for that up move on that situation. Microsoft still has that potential look of weakness here. Lower highs coming in here on this. You could draw that downtrend up here. For the bigger, the shorter term is here. So we're right at that point. If we start to see a little bit of failure, you can see I just drew in, completed a little head and shoulders pattern there on Microsoft, a break of this support, and then look out below there on Microsoft. I'm going to say the same thing here for Google. Google, after breaking down here substantially on their legal issues with the government, you can see trying to bounce back up into resistance, but watch this carefully. Somewhere between this resistance and maybe this resistance up here, I'm watching for that potential of failure and a continuation of that downtrend here in Google. Watch that closely. So there are some short trades to be had despite the wild bullishness that we've seen here in the market. We're getting very, very frothy, so be watching for a few of those. Interestingly enough, as I have been talking, the Dow futures shot up 90 points, and right now the Dow futures are down 56 points. Be careful here this morning. We might be seeing quite a little bit of back and forth. Now down 80 points, falling back from these highs in the pre-market. Interesting price moves. Keep an eye on Lululemon. Lulu holding in here very nice. Pushing back up toward this resistance in the chart. If that can break on through and hold a higher low, great. right up here at the double top high, I would not be thinking about catching an entry. I would be watching for that potential pullback to potentially occur. Take a look at some of the fuel cell things yesterday. Now, I don't know what created this yesterday, but all of a sudden we got a big pop here in F cell. Still has to break this downtrend here in the chart for me to be too excited about it, but seeing quite an interesting move here in those stocks. Take a look at the financials. BAC continuing to stretch to the upside, very bullish. Citibank showing bullishness. Goldman Sachs, all of those showing a pretty good day to the upside yesterday. Keep an eye on those. However, we did have a few things in some of the pay systems resting back just yesterday. SQ, and I think this rest back in here does nothing but set up the next opportunity long. That resting in here, I don't know how long it may have to rest, but watch that carefully for that opportunity in SQ. And by the way, I have a bias on that. I'm up huge in that trade. PayPal, looking good in here as well. Popped up yesterday, it pulled back a little bit. Again, I'm watching this for that rest out here to trend somewhere in here, and I'd be looking for that next opportunity to add to my trade there in PayPal. Looking okay overall in that chart, so keep an eye on those. You might want to keep an eye on IBM, really nice looking chart, really interesting W formation in here in that chart, and breaking through this area up here, that is significant. Pushing on up above here makes me think that we could just stretch on up and fill this gap before we rest or pull back. But if we were to get a little rest or pull back in here, what I'd want to see is rest and hold above this area here in the chart, and then I would look for that upside trend to pick up in IBM. So keep an eye on that. Roku, I think is back on the short side of things. We gapped down and rallied back through, broke through that resistance, but we couldn't prove to hold it, and now I think we are setting up a potential short here in Roku. Keep an eye on that if that were to push back or pull back, and remember, any weakness in the market could really pick up some of those stocks pretty quickly. Now, there's an area of the market that's kind of interesting, and I know I'm running this video long here today, but take a look at what's going on in some of these defensive sector stocks. I think there might be a little bit of a rotation from the institutions rotating towards some of these. Colgate pushing up here. We're seeing stocks like Hershey. We're seeing stocks like Coke and Pepsi coming up out of this bottom. We're seeing things like Kroger showing all kinds of bullishness. We're seeing Kohl's trying to, Kohl's just got hit hard here this morning on its earnings report, but it was trying to move up. So a lot of the old boring defensive sector stocks coming up and looking good. You could include things like AT&T and Verizon into that list. Procter & Gamble continuing to show lots of strength. Clorox showing lots of strength. So there may be something to this defensive sector. Might be institutions looking for a little bit of defense to hedge against this big solid run to the upside. We might be seeing them sneak over into a little bit of defensive type area. So watch that carefully if a rotation is starting to begin there. So with that, everyone, hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for putting up with me. I really appreciate it. Remember, tomorrow I'll be doing the morning market prep early in the morning, and then I'm gone. I will not even be able to see the market open for the day. I've got about a 7-hour drive ahead of me for our Thanksgiving plans. If you are taking off today for Thanksgiving, well, I wish you all of the best. Have a very safe and happy holiday, and I will see you back here, well, bright and early tomorrow morning. Take care, everyone.